grab me a beer and grab him a coke. We about to sit for an hour, bullshit and tell jokes. And please don't mix it up, cause he done sobered up. Brandon T Comedy on your social media feeds. And Brandon Taz if it's your ex drinking buddy. Brandon Taz if it's your ex drinking buddy. Brandon Taz if it's your ex drinking buddy. Brandon Taz if it's your ex drinking buddy.
What's up, everybody? Welcome into another edition of Brennan Tassif is your ex-drinking buddy. I'm your host, Brennan Tassif. If you're new to the program, quick rundown of the show. I used to be everyone's favorite drinking buddy. It was my favorite thing to do, hang out with friends, talk shop, do drugs, get drunk, get in all sorts of trouble, and reminisce about crazy old stories. I am sober now, but that is still one of my favorite things to do, hang out with friends and reminisce about the crazy old days. Most weeks I will be joined by a guest. This week is no exception. Comedian all the way from New York City, Julia Kastner.
Yeah, give it up for her.
What's up?
Oh, you know, everything. Everything is up.
Plug everything up front. Let everybody know where they can find you. You do have a new show that you've just started recently.
I have a new show. I have a new show. It's called At Just Friends Comedy. We have a show this weekend, actually. You can get your tickets at...
This will come out in 10 days, but all right.
Okay, well, you'll have missed it, so you're probably crying right now. But the next one is going to be soon. So follow At Just Friends Comedy. Follow me at World Famous Julia. That's what you should do. That's what you
World
should do.
Famous Julia on Instagram.
That's me.
That's the best handle. That, and then one of my good friends, very funny comedian, she's in Jacksonville now, but started in New York, Daisy Tackett. Hers is at Fat Steve Buscemi. Those two are my favorites. At World Famous Julia and at Fat Steve
I'm
Buscemi.
honored.
So you're new to the program. This is your first time on. So
Yep.
A lot of things that I like to do, I'm going to have the listeners get to know you a little bit. So you talk about it in your set. You have a very interesting type of background. Your dad's French?
So, okay. He's French, but he's actually really German.
Okay.
It's kind of a lie.
Okay.
But
so you do it for the show?
I do it for, well, no, I do it because he
Does he really have an accent?
Yeah. So he's German and French.
Okay.
He actually sounds more German. Like, he is German. He just lives, he's like a Francophile. Okay. But it's easier for me to do a French accent.
Oh,
so I just was like, you know what, I'll just
French.
stick to that.
And your mom's from Texas.
She's from Texas.
And your brother grew up in the UK.
Yes, we all grew up in the UK.
Yeah, but you don't have an accent.
I know.
And I'm sure you get reminded of that all the time.
Yeah. Yeah, I do.
So when you say grew up in the UK, how old were you when you were there? Were you born there?
I was born there.
So you're not an American
in London.
citizen.
I am an American citizen because my mom is from the U.S.
Oh, okay.
So that's how I swung that. I know.
Fucking immigrant.
I know. God, I get it all the time.
So when you were not that far, and I don't mean this disrespectfully, but you're kind of newer to stand-up, correct?
For sure.
Okay.
I'm only like nine months in, I think.
Yeah, because it was interesting. I met you at the Broadway open mic. And then we hung out a couple of times doing mics and stuff. And then you and I just kind of befriended each other.
Yep.
And then you're like, I think I'm going to start hosting my own open mic. And to me, it's interesting because coming from the perspective of doing it for as long as I have, I'm kind of getting to that point of jaded. Like, I still love comedy, but then I moved to New York and it's kind of like, God, I got to fucking start all over.
Yeah.
And then there's these young whippersnappers like you, and you're like, I think I'm going to start hosting an open mic, and I think I'm going to start a show, and I'm going to do this and that. And it was interesting to kind of see how that blew up within the last couple of months, because it was just a few months ago you and I were like, hitting mics here and there, and now all of a sudden you're like, I'm so busy.
It's like crazy. I feel like I've been doing a lot of just like, lots of mics, but also just hanging out everywhere.
Yeah,
and I feel like it's the hang, and it happened. I feel like people talk about when people talk. I feel like I've heard other comics talk about everything happening all at once, and then like it's like waves of like, oh my God, things are happening. I'm so
busy, and then it's
I have nothing to do, like stuff like that. So I feel like right now is my first like wave of that, where I've just been hanging out a lot, and like the fruitions of that are coming now, which is sick. It's really cool.
Yeah, that's awesome, because you started an internship. I don't know if you can say where, but you started an internship at a comedy club in New York City.
I did.
So you started hanging out with like bigger name comics there.
Yes.
And then you've been going out and hanging out. And this is something that I talk about with everybody. So there's, obviously different ideas on how to approach comedy as a whole. And a lot of times people are like, oh, it's all about reps, open mics. You got to hit as many open mics as possible, 20 a week, 30 a week. Mm-hmm. And then there's other people, which is the more camp I'm in, where it's like, well, I've been doing it for so long and I've got like my sets. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I still obviously am writing every day and I'm trying to work on new stuff. I put aside an hour every day to write. But it's one of those things where I only go to open mics if I'm trying like a new bit out.
Yeah.
Like I'm not going to go to open mics and do my 5-minute audition set or do my 20-minute road set. Like that doesn't make sense. So I'm more about the hang, which is, you start getting to know people and hanging out and stuff. Because there are so many people that are very funny. But if you're a dick or if you're never around, you'll just not get the opportunity.
It's so true.
So I've been a lot more, especially since moving to New York, a lot more about the hang. And now other comics are like, well, that's horseshit. Like you have to do the work. And it's like, well, I've been doing the like. I know I just got here, but I've been doing the like. You fucking go to Oklahoma City and do a bar show when the Thunder are playing on the TV, no sound off, like in the background. That's work. Like I've done all that.
No, for sure. And
so then when I got here, I was just hanging out a lot more, and it brought me so much joy to talk to you about this sudden influx of work and everything that you're doing. Because you totally solidified everything I talk about. Because you were like, well, I started hanging out a lot more. And then all of a sudden, all this stuff started happening. And I was like, that's exactly what I'm talking about. Real.
I feel like it just suddenly, like, I don't know when. This was like, I think it was after I started interning at the club. I was like, oh, wait, so much of this. Like, everyone, and actually, a pro comic there was telling me, he was like, look, everyone is funny. Yeah. In New York, like, all of these comics are funny. So there has to be a reason, like why you kind of.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's like a bigger thing too of like creating your own brand or whatever it is. But on a smaller level too, it's like, you have to be funny, but you also have to like have genuine relationships with people because people want to help each other. Yeah. But if they don't know you and they don't like you, they're not going to help you.
Well, and I talked about this with Maddie Weiner on her episode. It's interesting because comedy is an incredibly vulnerable and independent. So you're up there by yourself.
Yeah.
But the community surrounding comics is incredibly helpful. Yeah. And it's one of those things where I tell people all the time, like, I love having people on the podcast and I'll talk to people at work and stuff like my regular job. And they're like, oh, well, you're just, you have people on because you're like, oh, I need to get the people who like them to listen to my show. And it's like, no, I want them to come on to promote what they're doing, like to talk about there's 8 billion people in the world. There's plenty for everybody.
Yeah.
Like it's not a big deal.
No, I know.
So growing up in the UK, you sound like you're from London.
From London.
When did you, have you always been a fan of stand-up or you started in sketch, didn't you?
So I, when I was growing, I feel like this is the classic story. Everyone's like, yeah, I saw them on the TV when I was little. And so I used to watch Michael McIntyre, who's a big comic in the UK. And I've gone back and watched some of his stuff. I'm like, I don't know that this is my style anymore.
Well, you've grown. Yeah.
I have grown. But, I just thought that was the funniest thing ever. And then I started doing sketch in college. And then after college.
Where did you go to college?
I went to Barnard.
Okay.
Barnard College. It's on the Upper West Side.
Oh, okay. I thought maybe that was in the UK too.
No.
Because there we call it university.
The uni. Yeah, they call it uni. If you really know what's up, you would have said uni, but it's fine.
I don't know what's up.
You don't.
I don't even have a passport.
You don't.
Not allowed to go to Canada.
It's down. It's all down. It's not up.
So you started doing sketch in college. Was that something that you, like growing up, watching McIntyre, like kind of observing stand-up, was that something that you were incredibly passionate about or like, I want to try this? Or was it more something where it's like, oh, that's something fun I can do with friends or I need to make more friends? Or like, what drove you to it? The only reason I ask is because I've said it a million times, but I've had people on who are like, oh, I wanted attention. I like attention. And I tried modeling or acting and that didn't work out, so I did stand-up. And then I've had other people on who are like me, where it's like, no, at 12 years old, I was introduced to Mitch Hedberg and Tom Rhodes, and I was like, these people can make me laugh even though I hate everything that's going on around me. For this hour, I can laugh.
Yeah.
And I immediately was like, oh, this is awesome. And then I saw Dane Cook's Comedy Central Presents, which is a lot of his Harmful of Swallow jokes, and that clicked in my head where I was like, oh, I want to do that.
Yeah.
Because my style is very much high energy, stage presence kind of stuff. So when I would see Mitch Hedberg and Tom Rhodes and stuff, I was like, oh, this is hilarious. But it didn't connect with me because that wasn't who I was. And then when I saw Dane rip his shirt off, I was like, oh, this this is what I want
You're
to
like,
fucking do.
I want to rip my shirt off.
And be like, but still have a tank top on underneath. I don't want to go full Burt Kreischer.
For sure, yeah.
But so for you, when you get to college, are you like, okay, I'm going to do it. I'm going to jump into the comedy world. Or were you just kind of like, oh, this is a cool, fun thing I might try?
I think, well, it's interesting because I've been thinking a lot about, because I've gone from kind of a little like 0 to 100 with this. And I think it's interesting because I started sketch and I really liked it. And like looking back, like retrospectively, I'm like, oh, that makes sense. Because I went to Barnard. It's like, it's part of Columbia. It's very like.
Oh, so you went to Columbia.
Kind of. Like half kind of Columbia, kind of not. And it's like, I didn't connect with people. Everyone was very type A and not goofy. And I was like, oh my God, I am going to die. Like, I cannot hang out with these people. And then I started doing sketch and I was like, wow, I actually feel like I can be myself.
Okay.
And was so happy.
Yeah.
But they didn't click like, oh, when after college, I'm going to do comedy. And then then a friend of mine wanted to do an open mic.
So was this sketch group like a part of the university? Or
yeah, it's like one of the Columbia sketch
so it's like
groups.
a club team kind of
Yeah,
thing.
exactly.
Yeah, gotcha.
And so I was so happy doing that. And I was like, oh, this is very interesting. And then I graduated, did an open mic.
Would you graduate? Would you go to school for?
History.
Okay.
The funniest of majors.
What kind of history?
20th century.
Okay.
Yeah.
Boom.
Really?
I have a minor in history.
Hey!
Mine's American Civil War emphasis.
Okay. Well, that's cool too.
Yeah, I mean.
That's very cool.
I guess. Anyway,
Anyways, the point is
20th century history.
20th century history, let's go. Very funny. And then I graduated, did the open mic, and realized it was weird. Like during the pandemic, this is
all during the pandemic,
Pulp Fiction.
isn't it?
Yeah, this is like Pulp Fiction the way I'm telling this.
Tarantino
okay,
way.
so let's go back. So then I'm sitting, it's like the darkest times of the pandemic, and I'm sitting with my friend, and we were doing like
6 feet apart.
6 feet apart, masked. Everyone had COVID. No. So then, and we're sitting there, and it was like some stupid survey for this meditation app. You know, I was like, I need a meditation app in my life.
Yeah.
This is like everyone else. I'm taking this survey, and it's like, do you have a purpose? And I just started like crying. It was the weirdest thing. I was like, I'm like not okay. And my friend was like, why are you?
App, not a meditation app.
He was like, why are you crying right now? What the fuck? And I was and I didn't get it. And then I graduated, started doing comedy. I'm like, oh my God, this is the thing. Like, this is what I want to do. Because I think for me, like the coolest thing in the world to me is a funny idea. Like that is like that. I love that. I don't know why. I feel like everyone values something different in life and wants to get better at a thing. And for me, it's like if I can come up with a funny idea and have other people share that with me, that is the coolest thing in the world to me.
I think that's why you and I got along so well when we first like started hanging out, because I'm very similar in the respect that it's like, oh, it's stand up. Like that's it.
Yeah.
Like there is no, I could be extensively poor for the rest of my life and not have kids. Like I've wanted kids my whole life, but I'm willing. In my head, to me, comedy is bigger than all of that. Yeah. Which is weird because we're very fortunate in the fact that we found something that gives us purpose. And for you, it was the idea of the funny idea. For me, it was being able to, when I was younger, laugh at traumatic events, and that's how I got through them. Now I want to give that to other people, which is a much narrower scope. So obviously my audience isn't going to be, I'm not ever going to sell out Madison Square Garden, but that's okay. Like I want to be able to play rooms where, people can come and be like, yeah, like I've had some really shitty things happen too, but we can all laugh about it now.
Yeah.
And so to find that purpose, especially because you're, in your early 20s and you just kind of started doing comedy through sketch, and to still find that is incredibly, I guess, aware of you to be like, oh no, this is it.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, and it's just because, we meet so many people, and Drew, very funny comedian, we're going to get him on the podcast. Drew Tester was talking about this at one of the open mics. He's like, if I have to hear another 20-something-year-old dude talk about his dick and how much he loves pussy, like I'm going to go crazy. Yeah. But in my head, I'm like, yes, exactly. Like, exactly. Because there are so many people who start it because they're like, oh, I'm the funny guy at school, or I'm the funny guy at work. Yeah. And I've got all these like rude, crude jokes that I want to sling out there. And that's all well and good. And there's a place for that. Absolutely. I mean, some of those people fucking sell out Madison Square Garden. But at the same time, it's like, to the point you said earlier, what are you bringing to the table that's different?
Yeah, for sure.
Which is it's an intense way to think about it too, because it's like, oh shit.
Yeah. And I've been thinking a lot about that too. And I think what's cool is I don't see there are female comedians who are really, really goofy. There definitely are. But there are not that many. Like, it's hard. Like, I could probably count on one hand.
Yeah.
Like, that come to mind instantly, which is cool because that's my style. So I think and I think this is probably true for everyone. If you can be absolutely, completely 100% yourself, no one is like you. So if you can be 100% yourself on stage, you're automatically bringing something different to it. You know what I mean? You're bringing something different automatically. And it's it's going to be the best version of your stand-up because it's you. Like, I mean, that's not, you know what I mean?
Well, that's the thing is like everything I talk about on stage, and given the person I am on stage is a little more boisterous.
Yeah.
And everyone automatically thinks from my personality that I'm an extrovert. But really, in reality, like most comedians, I portray the extrovert qualities. But given the option, I'm an introvert. Like, I'd rather sit at home and play my Xbox, or like if I go out to eat by myself, it's normally by myself, and I will sit at the bar and put my headphones in and not talk to anybody. Like I'm not naturally like, hey, what's up, guys? Unless I'm drinking, which I don't do anymore. But it's interesting because me on stage is me. Yeah. It's a ramped up version.
Yeah, it's like a heightened version.
Yeah, it's me. And it's all I'm a storyteller, and all the stories I tell are things that have happened. And I've gotten in trouble before where people, not trouble, but I've had people come up to me before and be like, hey, if you said it like this, it'd probably be funnier. And I get into this war with myself because I go, but that's not true. That's not how it happened.
Yeah.
So then it becomes this whole question of how true does it need to be versus how funny should it be? Because your job at the end of the day is to make people laugh. Just like you were saying with your dad. Yeah. It's easier for you to do the French accent, so you just say French. Yeah. But I mean, it's still embedded in truth. Which
exactly. I feel like as long as
a foreigner.
Yeah, there's like a grain. I feel like as long as there's a grain of truth in it. Yeah. Because if there's not a grain of truth in it, I feel like an audience can tell.
Yeah, I'd say that all the time. Yeah. If you get up there and you're full of shit, very, very, more often than not, I guess I would say, the audience can feel that. Yeah. Because you don't have confidence in it. Even if you think you're saying it with confidence, the audience can sense it in your voice that you're not sure if this is how it happened or not. Yeah. I have an old law professor. He used to always say, people will believe anything you say as long as you say it with confidence. And I found that to be very true. Unless I'm talking to somebody who knows what I'm talking about. Like, I do it at work all the time. Like, I know enough about wine to get by, but I don't know a ton. But like, I'll have tables ask me about like, oh, should I do this one or that one? And I'll just say it with blind confidence. And they go, okay, awesome. And then they'll drink it and be like, great recommendation. This is fantastic. And I'm like, all right, cool.
And that's a comic for you. That is the comic's way.
Yeah. We're going to go with it. So I guess to your point, if there is truth in it, then you can get away with it.
And also like I think I'm learning that it's so, I had this joke, you know this joke, the rockabye joke that I think like where I am now, in a way, the way I was telling it, I kind of outgrew it. Like, it was very like, and what if they did it this way? It's like, if I have to tell it like that one more time, I will literally stop doing stand-up. So then I changed it and I made it so that it's like I'm in a coffee shop. I'm like, I was in a coffee shop and I heard this song, and then I go into this bit. And it's helped me, like, now I feel comfortable saying it again because I'm like, oh, there's like immediacy to this. Yeah. Even though it's a lie that I was in this coffee shop and heard whatever, I mean, I heard the song once. That's why I'm having a joke about it. You know what I mean? It's still a grain of truth in it, and it just makes the audience feel like, okay, like, I get why she's talking about this now.
Well, and it makes sense, too, because there are some of my stories where they're all based in truth, but some of them, like, I have a story about looking like a cop, all that kind of stuff. That whole like 5-minute segment, that whole bit is like, I've been arrested 8 times. So it's from the different times I've been arrested, different things that I took from those. But that doesn't make any sense to tell a 40-minute story about being arrested 8 times just to get to 5 tags. So it's like, okay, that's dumb. Why don't we boil all this down into a minute 30 and throw all 5 tags in there? Yeah. So like you said, like it's obviously all based out of truth, but I'm not going to be like, oh, and this one time I was arrested and this other time I got arrested. It's just like, I've been arrested 8 times and these are the things that I learned from that. Bang, 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 bang.
Because you want it to be consumable
it also
enjoyable.
has to be funny. Yeah.
The thing about stand-up is you want them to laugh. And I think a lot of people don't realize this.
Well, and sometimes people realize it too much, where they'll be like, oh, the only goal is to get them to laugh, so let me talk about sex and masturbating in front of my mom and humping stools. And it's like, all right, you're going too far the other way. Now you're going way too far the other way.
It's like, don't do 30 minutes on that. Come on, man. I already have 30 minutes on that. Don't take my material.
So, born in the UK.
Yep.
You were born in London?
In London.
Is that where you grew up in London?
I grew up outside of London. The burbs.
Essex?
Sorry. Not Essex. That's the Essex. Yeah.
Okay.
Not Essex. Sorry.
So you, for those of you listening, and I know we've kind of hinted at it, you were very good at voices and impressions and characters.
Yes.
That's like your thing. You love doing it.
I love doing it. And I think that, so this is the other thing about like starting stand-up. Looking back on it, I'm like, wow, this actually makes a lot of sense for me because I love to do accents. And there's all this observational stuff about, I'm from 2 different, like, from being from 2 different places, you automatically are like comparing stuff all the time and
I've
juxtaposing
seen The Departed. Yeah.
Yeah. You know.
You probably had 2 different fucking accents.
And that's me. So I think like that. And then also the fact, like, stand-up is so collaborative and also not collaborative, and that I think is one of the coolest parts about it, because I've had actors say like, I'm jealous of comics because comics have places they can go to hang out with other comics, and there's millions of those places.
Oh yeah,
that's crazy. Like, that's crazy.
That's true. I never thought about it like that.
Right?
Maybe
That's
is why
insane.
we have such a tight community.
And you can get up on stage any day you want.
Oh,
you don't have
especially
to get booked.
Up here, yeah.
Yeah, here, yeah. You can just go up and, I mean, you have to pay $5. But, like, you can go get on stage, do your set, and hang out with people afterwards.
Yep.
And that's something, that's so cool. I mean, it's collaborative, but it's also independent. So if you really just want to do your own thing, you have to wait for, like, other people to show. I don't know.
Yeah, and that's what I love about it, is that it's a huge community. And everyone, not everyone, only a Sith deals in absolutes, but for the most part, almost everybody is very, very quick to be like, helpful. Especially, you do have to get to know it. Like, you have to show up a couple times. And I had this conversation with Tori Cole because when I first moved here, I asked her to be on the podcast, and she was like, yeah, sure, maybe. And then it took 6 months, and then she finally came on, and I was like, what? Why are you so hesitant? She goes, I don't know. You just fucking showed up. You're a crazy dude from Florida. You asked me to come to your apartment to record a podcast. Like, it seemed weird.
Yeah.
But then I said, well, what changed? She goes, well, you're around. And I think that's a big thing, to her point, is that once you start showing up to a lot of mics and you start meeting different people, and then they introduce you to different people, then all of a sudden you're a part of the scene. You're in it.
No, it's true.
And then people are more than willing to help.
Yeah.
Because I've gone to mics before or even like, I'll show up and I don't know anybody. Like, especially when I first moved here. And I would lean on the crutch of like, I just moved here. This is my first, second, 10th time doing comedy in New York. But after a while, that wears thin. So being here for a year now, there are still mics I'll go to and I don't know anybody. And I immediately get that vibe of everyone in the room's like, who the fuck is this guy? Like, fuck this new guy.
Yeah.
But then if you show up to a mic and you know 1 or 2 people, then they introduce you to other people, then all of a sudden it's like, we're doing it, baby.
No, but it's crazy that in New York City you could go to something like that's relatively random, and that it's so tight knit that you know who's new. Like, that's bonkers.
Yeah,
too.
that is true. I didn't even think about it like that. That is true.
It's great, and it's great. Like, I'll run into people on the street. I see so many comments. It's insane. Like,
Just
once
randomly.
you're in it, just randomly, like, what's going on? Like, this is like, there are so many people doing comedy in New York.
It's my favorite thing to see someone who's a professional comic. Like, that's what they do, but they're still kind of like, they're still just getting started. Like, the kind of people where they'll get booked and they're past the clubs, but they'll also hit an open mic because they want to work on something new and they don't want to risk doing it at the club and it not working. So when I see them, it fills me with so much joy to be like, what's up randomly on the street? Because then everyone looks like, who's that person? Should we know who that person is? And it fills me with so much glee to be like, you're a celebrity, man. Like, I know you.
Oh my
like,
God.
What's up?
It's hilarious how much I have a friend who makes fun of me, because every single time someone walks in, like, I've been watching these I do the door at the club. So it's like, people come in and I know the comics and I know they're going on stage, whatever, and I've seen their bits, but they feel kind of famous to me in a way.
Of course.
So they'll come in And I'm like, oh my God, that's Susie Lollapalooza. And my friend's like, who the hell is that? Like,
I do it
no
all the
one,
time.
no one knows who you're talking about.
Whenever I go to the stand, because it's where I hang a lot, or even the cellar, and Savannah will come with me, my girlfriend, from time to time, and I'll be like, that's Emma Woman. And she's like, cool. And I go, yeah, that is fucking cool.
Yeah.
That's really fucking cool. Or I'll be like, that's Gary Goldman. And she goes, he looks familiar. I go, he was just in that Amy Schumer show we watched. And she goes, oh yeah, he played. But in my head, I'm like, he's one of the best comedians.
No.
Like, that's why it's cool.
I know.
Like, who cares about a show?
It's crazy.
I wanted to talk about growing up in the UK. So
yeah, sorry. I pivoted us, but I just think that community aspect of stand-up is really cool.
Don't worry, I'll keep us on track.
Okay.
I'm gonna keep this. Don't worry, I'll feed
Keep
you, baby
the train
bird. I'll feed you, baby bird.
Thank you.
So, how old were you when you moved back to the States? Because you went to college here.
I went to college here.
Did you go to high school in the UK?
For some of it, and then for some of it here.
So you moved by the time you were like 15, 16 is when you moved back?
Yeah.
Okay, and then what was it like growing up? Well, that was just life for you because that's where you grew up. So when you moved, was it a culture shock to move? Because you moved to Texas when you came back, right?
No, I moved to Massachusetts, and it's like interesting. Boarding school.
Okay.
Very fancy. Not actually.
Oh, really?
But no, just a boarding school.
Oh,
And then
okay.
my mom went to this school, and then stuff was going on at home, and she was like, okay, just go there.
Okay. So just get...
So she went, so I went there. They still lived in the UK.
Okay.
And then I would just go home.
And they were still together at the time?
Yes.
Okay. Because I know you have it in a bit where you go, oh, they're divorced.
They're divorced now. Yeah. Recently. Yay.
Yay. Shouts out.
Shout out to mom and dad.
So you go to boarding school, and was that just like, what the fuck? When you
my God.
first
no,
moved
crazy.
here, did you have an accent?
I didn't. I lost it when I was younger. And I think...
Did you purposely do that? Because if you're around people all the time, like speaking in an accent, I would just assume you would have it.
I know, it's weird. But I know someone in high school who had a mom who was English, and her American accent was very British sounding. Like she would say, like there's this thing, British people, when they ask questions, they go, oh, you're going to. Like they go down instead of up. Yeah. And she would do that, and I'd be like, oh, that's so interesting. That's the opposite of me. So I think, I don't know,
Which I find it curious because I used to do a lot of impressions and accents and stuff. And it got to the point where like people in my family were like, you should do that on stage. And I'm like, that's not my style. Like I talk about suicide and death and drugs. So like the accents would be weird to throw in there. But I'm the kind of person where if I'm around someone for an extended period of time, a couple of days, I'll start mimicking them. Not on purpose. It's almost by accident. Like when I was in rehab, one of my very good friends, Brendan, shouts out, he was from New Bedford. And by the third day, we had convinced the entire staff that we were fucking cousins and we were both from New Bedford. And I've never been to Massachusetts, but we were just fucking talking like this the whole time.
That's
and
so
if you
funny.
just do it to where it doesn't feel like it's forced, then people just believe it. It's almost like you could just do it naturally, and people are just like, "Oh yeah."
All of a sudden, I'm parking my car.
Yeah, that fucking fuck you.
Fuck you.
But you went the opposite. So you do impressions, you do characters.
Yeah.
But you lost your original accent.
I lost it. I had it when I was little, and I lost it. And then I got to and it was funny because it was culture shock, but also I sound so American that it was like, okay, what is she talking about?
When I first saw you on stage and you did that bit about growing up in London, I was like, you're a full of shit liar.
Yeah, no, I remember you said that to me. And then I was like, oh,
I literally went,
I was like, how do I
"You're a full of shit
convince
liar."
this audience that I'm not lying? Because again, there has to be a grain of truth in it. And they need to think that. So if I'm coming up there with my cowboy hat on and my American flag shirt, it's like, how? Yeah, I don't know.
So
it works though, so it's fine.
It does.
It's fine.
Well, you go to boarding school.
Yep.
And no supervision? What was that like? Was it crazy rules, super strict?
It was. I mean, this place is like it's like a utopia. The school they're so nice. And when I explain the rules, people are like, oh, that's a little draconian. But it's actually not. Like they had rules, but it was not a like boarding school. You know what I mean?
So did you get introduced to any kind of like partying or drinking, or was that not until you went to college?
No, we were so straight laced. It was
really?
the funniest thing.
Yeah?
It was like so
Straight edge, baby.
the day students would go crazy, but the boarders, because the boarding students, if you got, I think there was a girl who like died, who was a boarding student who went to a party and she like froze to death or something. It was horrible. So basically,
froze to death?
Yeah, she like was really drunk and like wandered into like a pond or something.
Oh my God.
Really bad. So after that, I got there after that, and they were so like, it wasn't like you had to sign in and sign out whenever you went anywhere.
Yeah, because someone died.
So it was like we didn't really have. Yeah, there was no day students didn't invite us because we were quote liabilities. And look, I'm fine with that. I had fun in college, and we had a lot of fun in high school too, but it just was very sober.
Yeah. Let's talk about college then.
Okay, yeah.
So how did you decide to go to the school you went to?
It was in New York, and I wanted to be in New York.
Okay, so
which
that was
thank God, because I think that's part of the reason I'm doing stand-up.
Yeah.
So
where is it exactly?
it's part of Columbia, so it's like Columbia's on like in Morningside Heights.
Yeah,
so it's basically it's on the other side of the street.
Okay.
So it's kind of the same, kind of not.
So it's in the city.
It's in the city, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So you go there and you're like, all right, I'm doing it. Why did you apply to NYU, or you just thought, I want to go to this other school?
No, I wanted to go to school. So Barnard is technically a women's college.
Okay.
That's a part of Columbia.
Okay.
So yeah, and so I really liked that vibe.
You. Yeah.
And then the beauty of it is you can kind of pick and choose because everything is integrated.
Yeah.
So it's like a women's college in name, but if you don't want it to be a women's college, you don't have to, which worked out really well for me because
So I'm just looking at your list now. All this stuff happens. I am very interested in this. So let's start with the first one you sent me. Okay. So that's in college. But before we get to that specific story, when did you start? Did you immediately start drinking when you got there, like as a freshman? Were you living, obviously you were living on campus because your family's in London.
I started drinking when I was 18, just like, because I went home before I went to college. And
is that the Dublin story?
No. That was later? After.
Okay, we'll do it chronologically then.
Yeah.
So you graduate from high school and then you go home.
I go home, I started drinking, but it was not
take us
crazy.
Through it, because that's something I find... Again, this is something I can relate to because I didn't start drinking until much later in life compared to people around me. So I grew up in Florida, and I know my older brother was real popular. So was my older sister and my twin sister. So they were going to parties as like freshmen and sophomores in high school. I didn't really start drinking until like my senior year. And I didn't start like drinking and that was once in a while. And then I didn't start drinking until I was like 18, 19 after high school completely was over and I was in college. So people always think that's weird because I'll have people on the show and they're like, yeah, I started drinking at like 13 or I started drinking at like 12. So you're in the same kind of boat I was. So you did not drink at all. And then when you go home, what is that experience like the first time you decide? Because at that point, you're making a decision to drink.
Yeah.
Because when you're younger, everyone's just kind of doing it. So then you do it.
Yeah.
But when you're 18, at that point, you're like, oh no, like I've said no enough. I think I'm going to try it now.
Yeah, for sure. And it was weird because everyone in the UK obviously starts drinking when they're like 14.
Yeah.
So, and like everyone, it's not even, you know what I mean? Like it's just so normal that I would have friends who would go out and I was like, I don't know, like what's it gonna be like? You know what I mean? Which is it's so interesting because then I would go back to school and then obviously I wasn't drinking in school and then I would come back and it was just like I was completely, I was totally different, disconnected, not with the group in terms of that. And then
what happened? You go home, you graduate, you go home, and then are you just like fuck it, let's do it, or
I
were
think,
you like? You have one brother, right?
Yeah, two brothers.
Okay.
It was actually the first time was at a party after we graduated high school.
So is this still at the boarding school?
Yeah, so this was right afterwards, and we were drinking, and it was I honestly all I remember is having like 2 shots and then going to bed.
Oh, really? Okay.
It was not crazy at all. And then I went home.
I'm interested about this. Did you wake up the next day like that was overrated, or I don't see what the big deal is, or like what was your mindset?
I think I was kind of like, oh, okay.
It's not
because I think before that, I remember so distinctly my friends in the UK being like, oh, we're going to go out. Do you want to come out with us? And I was like, oh, I don't know. Because I was scared. It's like this thing. It's like it was like a bridge that I was like, I don't know what's on the other side of this. And I don't know. And then, which is so crazy because it's really not that big of a deal. And then I did it with, then I had like those 2 shots or 3 shots at this party. And then I was like, oh, and then I went to bed and then I woke up and I was like, okay, that was okay.
I had the same experience when I first went to rehab, and then I got out and I had like almost a year sober. I talked about this before. I relapsed like 2 weeks before I got my 1-year chip. And I remember the very first shot I took, it was that same feeling of like, what's on the other side of this?
Yeah.
Because I had been sober at that point, the longest I'd been since I had started drinking. And I was just like, if I do, like, am I going to explode? Like, am I going to do this shot? And then all of a sudden, everyone I've ever met in sobriety is going to get a text like, Brennan's drinking again. Like, what? And then I did it, and I was like, oh, nothing happened. Like,
it's weird.
Nobody's banging on my door. Like, nothing. And I was like, oh, okay. Like, everything's fine.
Yeah. It's so.
So I do understand that feeling of like, I'm not sure. I don't know what's on the other side of this.
Yeah. It's so weird. And then I don't really know. I don't really remember. I think I just had like a good summer. Like I just went home. We would drink. It was like very casual. It was nothing crazy.
So when you first started drinking, it wasn't over the top immediately, like blacking out, getting in trouble.
No, not at all. Because also people.
And that's very responsible.
Thank you.
Well, trust me, I've been doing this show for over a year now. I've had people on where they're like, the first time it hit my lips, I was like, ah.
Yeah, no, I was definitely not like that. I was definitely not like that. I feel like I am so fine, but then I've had like 2 experiences where it was really bad.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about that.
Yeah, but it's funny because then when that happens, it's so out of character. You know what I mean? And everyone's like,
and I love that you bring that up, because when I tell people the idea of the show, they're always like, oh, they go, oh, you have a podcast? What is it? And I go, Ex Drinking Buddy. And they go, oh, that's an interesting name. Like, what's it about? And I go, well, everyone that I've ever met, for the most part, has a story of one time I got so fucked up, X, Y, and Z. Whether it's getting it, because I've had people on here who don't drink that often, but they get in trouble, they've done drugs, or they do drink, like you said, and get a little out of control on occasion, and then something happens. But for the most part, a lot of people have that story. And that's why I love doing the podcast, because it's like, even you're very buttoned up. I honestly, it didn't even cross my mind to ask you to do the show because I thought she's not going to have any stories. Just because you come off as such a responsible, buttoned up person. Yeah. And on stage, you do your thing where it's not like it's not dark. It's not like it's very fun and lighthearted and silly. And it's you. Mm-hmm. And so in my head, to be honest, like Max Fine, who we're also going to have on the show, he gets up there and I'm like, oh, this dude's got some fucking skeletons in his closet. Like, let's go. But then for you, but then you started doing your show, the Just Friends and everything. And I was like, oh, well, now you have stuff you want to promote. Mm. So like now we have to get you on the show and fucking we'll piece some shit together and make it up. And it was so funny because as soon as I said, do you want to do the show? You said, yeah. And I said, well, do you have any stories? Thinking in my head, like, she's going to be like, no. Because I've had people on where they're like, oh, I've never drank before. And I'm like, well, fucking, what are we going to talk about? But you said, well, I've got a couple. And you said, I don't know if they'd be good for the show. Like, one, I went to the hospital. I said, stop right there. Stop right there. That'll work. So you are responsible, but you do from time to time.
Look, everybody's had made some mistakes.
So you started drinking, like you said, after high school and then throughout college. Never got crazy. Never, but very rarely got crazy.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the last show for the sketch comedy group in college. So you're a senior at this point?
No, I think I was a junior because this was before I think this was the last show before the pandemic.
Oh yeah, because the pandemic happened.
Fittingly,
so you guys couldn't do it anymore anyway.
Yeah. So basically, the sketch group.
Did you know it was the last show? Like, how did?
So basically, the sketch group it was a semester long thing. We would do all of everyone would, we'd do all the sketches, whatever, prepare them, and then we'd have 4 shows at the end of the semester. And the last show was the late night show. And we had 2 shows, or no, I think we had 3 shows like that week. And then we'd have this show at 8. And then we'd go get really drunk and then come back at 11 and then do all of the sketches again, but with like different twists to them.
Yeah,
and also
wasted.
We would be drunk. So it was like that. Yeah, that's a twist. So... And then, it was crazy. It was like
So
a lot of the twists ended up just being people making out on stage.
Really?
Yeah, it was the funniest thing. This group is like.
So tell me about how. So you would do that at the end of the semester.
At the end of the semester, every semester.
Every semester.
Yeah.
So you knew, okay, this is the last show.
And I'd had problems in the past, like 1 year.
Okay,
just
so
like,
it's more than 2.
No,
Here
well,
we go.
it's more than 2, but it's not that. I mean, it's just like I mean.
Were you one of the people making out on stage?
Sometimes, but also that was for my role. I had to make out with someone.
Yeah.
So it's like,
it's for
So okay, the thing. Okay,
it's a part of the character.
It was just method acting. Okay, have you heard of it? So,
pretty good at this. You heard of it?
Have you heard of that? So I'd had issues in the past because I don't normally. Well, you don't
go hard in the paint. Yeah,
I don't go hard, and also I'm like a pretty relatively thin woman. I don't have, if I do 3 shots in a row, I'm gonna black out. You know what I mean? So I would, but then we drink so fast.
Just real quick, slight humble brag. I'm a pretty thin woman.
I mean, you know what I'm talking about.
No, I know. You are very svelte.
If you're, you know what I mean.
I mean, I do it all the time.
I don't know how to say
I'm a pretty
this.
fucking jack dude, so.
What am I supposed to say? Okay.
No, you are. You're very svelte.
I'm just like,
you're thin, you're petite.
My tolerance will not.
You're beautiful. You're the best.
Okay, so here I am,
You're the thinnest girl.
Super hot.
The thinnest woman I've ever seen.
Okay.
So thin.
Yeah, but
the thinnest.
Thin does not have to be a good thing. I mean,
that's
you
true.
see what I'm saying?
I
could have been putting myself down. Yeah, see? So you heard it here first. I'm not saying that makes me hot. What I'm saying is,
what makes me hot is not that. But what makes me hot is...
Let me first tell you what makes me hot. Okay, and then no.
So you've had trouble in the past.
The problem is, my tolerance is very low, and it can go from fine to really bad very quickly.
So did anything before this last one, because that's an epic one? Did anything happen out? I mean, obviously a few things happened out of character, but anything that's worth bringing up on the show? Did you do anything dumb?
I mean, it was just gross because I just we did all the shots, whatever, came back, and I was just throwing up.
Oh,
and
really?
then they were like, "Julie, you got to go on stage." And I was like, "Oh."
Were you able to get on stage?
Yeah, I did it. I'm a trooper.
Fuck yeah.
Yeah.
So then this last one.
Okay, so I remember distinctly did not make. Oh my god, no, it's so bad. So here's the thing. So my friends, so we go back to someone's suite. We drank so much, and I remember being like, "Wow, I haven't had a drink in a while because I've been studying for finals or something."
Yeah.
And I was like, this is this is great. So, and then before we left, I remember taking a swig of the Svedka, and I was like, okay. And then we walked out, and then a friend of mine offered me his bottle of wine, and I chugged that, and then we got to the theater, and then
you
from
had
then
already
on,
been drinking before, at the suite.
Yes, so bad, and then we get back to the theater, and now I don't remember anything else except I blacked out. Then I kind of come to, and I'm throwing up in the bathroom. But when I say I genuine, I couldn't see anything. I could just hear people talking.
I've had those moments where you come in and out of the blackout.
You come in, and it's I knew I was in the bathroom, but my brain was so fucked at that point. I had no idea what was happening. So this, from my perspective, I come to a little bit, then I'm back, and then I woke up, and I was in the hospital, and it was 4 a.m. I was like, oh my god, what is happening? And from the outside, I think I had an IV. I think they were giving me water. Isn't that what they do? Saline or whatever? Yeah. So, but from my friends came to the show. I told them if you want to come to a show, I'm on this show at 11.
The last
one. Oh god. So then also that drunk show is not fun for any audience member because they're just sitting there and not getting the inside joke.
Professional comedians in New York, they'll get on stage and it'll be the late show and you can tell they're drunk and I'm like what? I get it, man. Nobody gets it more than I get it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's I was excited to see you, and this set is garbage. So it's come on.
Yeah.
There's some that can do it. There are actually quite a few that can do it, and they crush. But then you see the ones that don't drink that often or maybe just drank a little too much. And then you go to the Late Show and you're all excited like, boy, oh boy, I'm going to see this comedian that I really like. And then they get on stage and it's just a disaster. And I'm like, come on.
That's why I don't drink before I get on stage ever.
I used to drink too much, but the listeners have heard that.
It makes me so nervous.
I used to do open mics hammered and run the light and do an Arnold impression for like 12 minutes at a 5-minute mic. Yeah, it was.
And then would they just be like, get off stage?
Yeah, but I'm a big dude and I've always been big. Even when I was fat, I was still bigger than everybody. So a lot of people are like, just let him do it. Like, what are we going to do? Fight him? Like, just let him do it. Who cares? And so, it was horrific. Back to you.
Anyways, yeah. So basically,
4 in the morning,
I wake up. Well, so basically, my friends that's all I remember from that part. Yeah. But my friends who were there said that they can't. Yeah. So so many people were in the bathroom with me trying to help me throw up. I was like completely passed out basically, and then like coming to, and then like throwing up, but then not. Like I was. And I was so pale.
Your body was in survival mode.
Completely passed out. And then my friends were like, Julia's not in the show. This is so weird. They walk outside. I'm on a stretcher. Looking like I'm dead. They were literally like, we were really
We lost another one.
Yeah, like seriously. Like they were like, oh my God, is she alive? So they put me on, I'm like a rag doll. They put me on the stretcher. They get me to the hospital. And then, I woke up and they told me that I had I almost had hypothermia. I think that's what it was.
It was that
and my bradycardia or something, which is when your heart rate is so low that they're like really worried. It was at like 30 something.
Jesus.
Yeah, really not
That's
good.
what happens when people OD on heroin. Sometimes their heart stops.
Yeah. So it was actually really bad. And I woke up and I was like, where am I?
Alcohol poisoning, baby.
Seriously. So for days, I was just like shaking. Like I was like this. It was horrible. It was, oh God, it was so horrible.
So did you take a break from drinking after that?
Yeah. No, I had a beer the next day.
That's what I did.
I went back to the
When
bar.
I was in college, the first time I ever got alcohol poisoning, I wasn't sure what it was, but I got rushed to the ER, the whole deal. And then I got released like a day and a half later. And I remember getting out of the hospital and I was just kind of like, oh, I feel a lot better. Like they pumped me full of saline. Like I'm good to go. And I just started, because I was fucking like 20 years old. I didn't know. So I just started drinking with my friends again.
What did you feel like?
Oh, I felt like shit when I got out of the hospital. Like my throat was hurting so bad. Because I was throwing up to the point where it wasn't bile. Everyone's like, oh, you were throwing up bile. And I was like, no, I was throwing up like stomach acid. Like it was black tar coming out. And it like closed my throat because it's very, very potent. So like my throat had closed up because it was so like all the inflammation from throwing up, all that stuff. So I remember when I finally got out of the hospital, it was still hard for me to swallow. And I felt like shit. And I remember, like, I went back to my buddy's house, Dan, who's been on the show, Daniel Barricat, shouts out, the original drinking buddy. And I think I did like a shot, and I felt way better. And I was like, all right, here we go. I'm back.
Oh, my God. The doctors are like...
Well, there's a reason I quit drinking, Julia.
I'm just picturing you're back there the next day, and they're like, come on, man.
It took, after that, God, it took 10 years after that, but I eventually stopped.
Hey.
But you did not quit. So you have that horrific experience.
So I had this horrific experience, and then I woke up, it was 4 a.m., and I was so confused. And then, this is probably not relevant to the story, but it was just like the totality of them was so ridiculous. At the time, I was crushing on my friend, and we ended up dating for 2 years.
Aww.
So yeah, but at the time,
then it ended horrifically.
It ended back. No, it did not end horrifically. Okay, it's all good. It's all good. But we were no longer together. It's all mutual. It's all fine.
I say that all the time because I too was the one who got broken up with.
I hope he never listens to this, but I will just say this. I don't think
You don't have to. Don't feel obligated to
okay, it
burn
doesn't
bridges.
Matter. No, it's fine. Whatever.
But continue. So
but anyways, the point is crushing on this guy, and then I was texting everyone I knew because it was 4 a.m. and I was so confused.
Were you alone in the hospital?
Alone, yeah. So I was just like, oh my God, where am I? Like blah blah blah. All these other people next to me were like 50 years old, like these 50-year-old guys who were all like also I guess had alcohol poisoning. I was confused. And then this one Barnard girl the college I went to, this one girl was sitting there so drunk. And I was like, oh, like there's someone my age. And she starts talking to me and she's like, oh my, I just had too much. I had too much. I was like, what's going on right now?
Where
am I? Hello. So then no one's coming in and I didn't have my phone. I was freaking out. And then I texted him and he happened to be awake and he, bless his heart, came and got me from the hospital. And then we had a platonic sleepover because I literally couldn't go home.
Why did you put
upset.
platonic in air quotes like that?
Because we ended up dating, so it's like,
oh yeah,
it was the beginning of
beginning of the end.
Oh, that's so sad. But it's just like
imagine if you never dated. He would have just been some crush that you really liked once.
I know.
And now there's all this extra like, I fucking hate him.
No, I don't hate him.
I'm kidding.
If you're out there,
I'm kidding.
Hey, if you know who you are, and I don't hate you.
She broke my heart, so I broke her. Anyway.
But anyways, that's the point. Is it was so crazy because then weirdly, at the end of it, something kind of good came out of it. Because that like made us closer and whatever,
yeah, for
right?
sure.
But it was like part of this horrendous experience. And I've walked past that hospital since, and every time I'm like, wow.
Well, I have a whole bit. I say this all the time. I have a whole bit about this. But I do have a bit about, I think you've heard it, the not believing my current, like having a dramaless relationship. To your point, like when I was with my ex-fiance, I would get in trouble a lot. Like I'd drink too much and she'd have to bail me out of jail or rush me to the hospital, or she never technically bailed me out of jail, but she'd have to go like come pick me up when I got released and stuff. And so when she told me she loved me, I believed her like with every ounce of my body. Cause it's like, obviously you've been through so much with me.
Yeah.
And now in my current relationship, cause I don't drink anymore and I'm pretty responsible. Like none of that stuff happens. So the bit is when she tells me she loves me, I just have to take her at her word. And I don't believe her.
Who does that?
But to your point, like, you know, it's a horrible experience, but the fact that he was there for you obviously is going to bring you closer together.
Exactly.
See, terrible experiences bring people closer together.
I mean, if that ain't the truth.
You learn more from a tragedy than you ever could learn from success.
That is so true on so many levels.
Yeah, well, I mean, we talked about it in football all the time. You learn more from a loss than you ever would from a win.
You learn more from a bomb than you learn from a crush.
Oh, yeah.
For
sure. For
sure.
Even if it's a bomb in front of 6 comics staring at their phone, you're still like, I got to fucking fix this.
Yeah.
If I can't even get them to, like, given they don't laugh at a lot, but if I can't even get them to look up from their phone, something's wrong with
Something is wrong.
So this wasn't the last time you drank in New York.
No.
Because how far away was it, the phone incident? How much further away was that?
This is honestly my favorite story.
Because you just graduated from college, what, 2 years ago?
A year ago.
Yeah. So it couldn't have been that much longer.
No, it wasn't. See, that's the thing. It was like two different this was maybe 2 years after that. No,
because that was your
this
junior
was
year,
this was before that. This was sophomore year.
Okay, so the phone incident was sophomore year.
The phone incident was sophore year.
Okay.
So
this is before the hospitalization.
Yes.
And Dublin is after all of this?
Dublin was before that. That was just a good, because you said a good one.
No,
That's
sure.
like a good story.
We'll tell the Dublin story and then we'll end on the phone story.
Okay. The Dublin story is basically,
How old are you? Set the scene. Let people know.
After freshman year.
You go home.
I go home. Me and my friend took a flight.
Are your parents still living in London?
Yes.
Okay.
We took a flight to a friend of mine.
Damn, they're still together through all this.
They are? I know, yeah.
No, I'm saying because it's Tarantino again. I know they're divorced now.
Oh, I see.
So every time you're like, oh, I went home, I'm always like, oh, still both in London. Still there. Still
Crazy.
together.
I know.
When's that hammer going to drop?
When's it going to happen? Is it going to be after the phone incident? Before the phone incident?
I don't know.
And I like to keep you in the dark. Keep you guessing.
So you go home.
I go home, and then me and a friend
after freshman year?
Yeah, after freshman year. We went to, a friend of mine and I went to Dublin for the weekend, and it was...
How far is that?
It's like a
2-hour train ride?
2-hour flight.
Okay.
Super easy. It's like going to Florida. I mean...
Okay.
So it's like super. It's the best. Yeah, it's honestly
not sure how big Europe is.
My
Dublin, only bearing of Europe is from that really old movie you've probably never seen called Euro Trip, where they travel across. And he's like, Europe is like the size of Kansas.
No,
like,
it's actually crazy.
There.
Yeah, no, it's really insane. So we went to Dublin, and it was genuinely It's the best. I think it's the best place to go out in the entire world because, well, for me specifically, because there's live music everywhere.
Yeah.
And people are playing.
Bagpipes everywhere.
Bagpipes. So much. We went into this one bar and this guy was playing on his guitar and it was like it was an EDM concert in there. It was the funniest thing. Everyone's like just going so hard, so great. It's lovely to watch. It's amazing. It's so fun. And we did this bar crawl that was insane where there were welcome shots at every single pub. So bad.
So how did you survive this? Because the last time you only did like 5 or 6 shots.
Yeah, so done. we were done, and we also the hostel we were staying in was kind of in a sketchy part of town. Okay. So it got to a certain point.
Yeah, it was in Dublin.
Yeah. So we were
sketchy part of Ireland.
Yeah. So we were like, okay, we gotta this is fun, but it's time to go home now.
Actually, because listener in Ireland. DVK, I love you. I'm not dissing Ireland. I know you live there.
No, Ireland's best. Dublin was so amazing. I want to go back. Everyone should go. You should all go. Spend your tourist money in Dublin if you can. So,
how many bars did you get to on the bar crawl before you were like tapped out? 5 maybe. Oh, really? Yeah. Good for you. You did the shot at every single one?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. Rock and roll.
Yeah. So, but by the end, it got to a point where we were like, okay, if we don't go home now, will be unsafe.
Little foreshadowing.
So then, actually, I'm just remembering this now. So then
that happens.
Yeah. So then we go outside. We're like, let's go home. And then one of those guys with the it's a cyclist guy with the chariot behind them pulls up, and we're like, oh, let's go for a ride. So now we're in this chariot thing, riding around, having a ball. So fun. We get off and so hammered. We come back to the original place we just were, and he is like, I can't remember what number he said, but it was something inordinate amount of money. We were like, I'm not paying that much money for this. That's crazy. It probably actually wasn't that much. It was probably I think it was like a 5-minute ride, and I think he was asking for like 25 euros or something.
That's a lot.
Which is a lot. And we were like,
$40.
We were like, no. Is it? Wow. Is it $40?
Yeah.
Oh my god. Okay, so anyway, so now we're like haggling with this guy.
Probably not. It's probably
I don't think it's $40. That's like a lot. But anyways,
a euro's like $175, right?
I should know this.
Anyway,
the point is basically the point is this is not a math podcast, okay? This is not an exchange rate podcast, all right?
Bitcoin.
So basically, now we're like haggling with this guy, arguing, blah 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 blah.
And you're hammered.
And we're so hammered, and he knows that. I'm sure he was.
That's why he was like
perfect.
25 euros.
Yeah, exactly. So, anyways, I don't remember what happened.
How did you get out of it? Did you pay him?
I don't remember. I think we paid him like 20 or so because we had to get out. We were so drunk. So then we get in a cab and we're on our way home, and we're like blasted. This guy, the guy who was the cab driver was super nice, and we're like, oh, thank God, like a kind soul. And he was telling us all about Dublin, and he goes, I'll never forget this. He goes like, I can't do an Irish accent. I can only do Scottish, so I'm not gonna do it. But he's like, the average, I want to do it so bad, but I can't. Okay. He's like, the average guy here drinks 10 to 15 pints on a night out. That's what he says. And we're like, oh my God, really? And then I look out of the window, and as he's saying that, this man is just peeing on the side of the road, turns around, dick facing us, and then falls over. And I was like, well, that checks out. It was so funny.
Oh, that is hilarious.
It was really funny, yeah.
So then you get back to the States. And now you're a sophomore.
And I'm a sophomore. The way we're telling this makes it sound like I went on a 3-year drinking tear.
I know.
Which
Isn't
I
it
did.
Fun how I can do that?
Yeah, it's really fun. You've really painted a picture, and I'm not sure I like it.
Well, you let me know if you don't want the episode to air, and then I will.
No, I'm really okay with it.
Well, I was going to say I'll kindly take your criticism, and I'll put that away somewhere, and then I'll put it out.
Oh, nice. Okay, thanks. So kind of you.
I'll put it out with regret. Like, I'm sorry, but
just write. She didn't want this to air. That'll get people's attention.
That might be the name of the episode.
She didn't want. That's kind of funny.
Comedy.
Comedy.
So the sophomore year.
Okay, so this is my favorite story. So I'm at the same friend actually who I went to Dublin with. She was out of college and she had a housewarming, and I went with a friend from that. All these people tie back together. With a friend of mine who was in the sketch group with me, who genuinely has helped me through. Like he came to the hospital with me when I went. Like he always gets
Is this the
really.
boyfriend?
No. It's just a friend.
I thought you were at the hospital alone.
I was at the hospital alone, but he's the one who brought me in the. I don't remember it, but apparently he was there and like made
was
sure.
there. Okay.
Yeah. So
So you dropped you off. Then he's like, all right.
he dropped me. He's like, peace. No. He genuinely like he helped me out a lot. And this is the reason this is the story where he really helped me out. We were at this party together, and we were both coming. He was a student too, so we were about to go home, and he was like, why don't we both take a shot to make the subway up more fun?
And are you drunk at this point? Or
I am drunk at this point. So we take a shot, and then we get on the subway.
So where are you coming from?
We're coming from the Lower East Side.
And then you're going up to the Upper West Side.
So it's kind of a hike.
Yeah.
Especially at night.
That's a fucking...
It's a hike. It's a hike. And so I remember we left the apartment.
You're going all the way across.
Yeah, it's really bad. So we left the apartment, and I remember... we couldn't find the subway, and we were both it was like the blind leading the blind, like so drunk. And then I remember seeing the green light of the Second Ave stop. And I was like, oh my God, there it is. I was like, we have to go that way. So it's like following me, like follow the light. We get into the subway, we're standing there, and then it really hits me, and I'm not okay. Like I'm like sitting on the ground, I'm like not well. And he goes hard, but he can handle it. Yeah. So he was really drunk.
He's like, oh, this familiar friend.
Yeah, exactly. He's like, oh shit. Like
hello,
he's like helping
darkness,
me.
My old friend. That's playing in his head, and you're like freaking out. And he's just like, no, I'm comfortable here.
He played it on his phone. He played Simon and Garfunkel on his phone. So we're sitting there. I'm sitting. That's how you know it's bad.
If you're
I'm
sitting in a subway stop, yeah.
That's very on the ground, bro. So gross. So I'm sitting there. I'm not well. He's like patting my head or whatever, and I'm like just. And then the train. Okay, so are you? I don't know how
like
this happened.
On the stairs, or are you like down?
No, we're
in
on
the
the
middle
platform.
Of okay.
We're on the platform. I'm sitting down. The train starts to come or something like that. We know the train is about to come. So he's like, Julie, you got to get up. So I get up. Probably takes me like an hour. I get up. I'm holding my phone. I turn around, and somehow my phone with crucial information, my credit card and my ID to get back into my dorm.
The little thing on the back of your phone.
Yeah.
Little wallet thing.
Yes. Yeah. My ID and my credit card, whatever. Yeah. See, but nothing's in it right now because I have learned.
Yeah. And you broke it.
And also I broke it. Okay. Anyways, so I get up. All that stuff is in my phone. My hand, I don't know what happened.
As you're turning,
I'm turning, I just let it go. It goes into the tracks.
Down onto the
Down in the tracks.
In the
tracks. Like below where the
rail is.
The rail is. And then the train comes, and obviously
I was in a panic?
I was like, oh my God, we got to get it. And my friend was like, no, we're not, no, because I was so drunk. Like we couldn't, and he was so drunk. There was no way we would have died if we tried to get it.
We have to get it.
We have to get it. He's like, absolutely not. So I'm like, oh my God. Then we get on the train, but I'm so drunk.
So you just get on the train?
We just get on the train.
You just leave it there?
With my phone below.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You didn't wait for the train to pass and then like ask someone to jump down there and grab it?
No. We just get on the train, and I'm freaking out. But also, I'm so drunk that I could only really handle.
Yeah.
It took 5 seconds for me to forget it had just happened a little bit. So now we're on the train. We get off at Times Square, and I remember just throwing up in that trash can. Oh my God! It's
as you do at Times Square,
huh?
As people do at Times Square.
I know, but it's so bad. So I'm throwing up in Times Square. It's horrible. The train ride went really fast, though. Yeah. I'll say that. It wasn't what he proposed, but we definitely had a quick subway. Yeah. We get back, and I don't even have my ID. I can't get into my like dorm, building. Yeah. So he's like, okay, just come to mine, sleep on the couch. We'll figure it out in the morning. So I go to his, sleep on the couch, wake up so unwell. And then I realize my dad is getting in today, and I'm supposed to beat him.
Dun, dun, dun.
Dun, dun, dun. So then I'm like, okay, thank you so much for your help. I'm going to go
Back to the subway station.
back to the, so then I'm also, my dad's like, can you meet me at 59th? And I remember walking down.
How do you know? You don't have your
Oh,
phone.
because I went back. I think I got like a temporary ID or something.
Okay.
I was in like problem solving mode, but also so hungover. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to get a temporary ID. I'm going to go back to my dorm. I'm going to get on my computer. And then, I feel like on your I didn't have iMessages at the time. So I started just emailing my parents. So I'm emailing my dad. I'm like, hey, blah, 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 meet me here, whatever. So we get a time. I meet him there. And he's like, Julia, what happened? Like, why do you not have your phone? And I'm like, I messed up.
Funny story, Pops.
Dad, I messed up. So he's like, oh my God.
Chardonnay. Blah, blah, blah.
He's like, so then we were like, okay, I find my iPhone. So we go on Find My iPhone, and my phone
You
is
couldn't
still.
remember this
No,
stop
I
you're at?
couldn't remember the stop. I was so drunk. So we get on his Find My iPhone, and we plug in mine. Or like we like put in whatever, and it says it's like somewhere in Lower East Side.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my God, like we can find it. So we just go down there, and it's like, oh, it's still beeping, right? Like it's still like giving out a signal, so it must be crushed.
Yeah,
right,
for sure.
So we go down, and we're just wandering around, and then I see the green light, and I'm like, oh, that's the one. That's 2nd Ave. I think it was 2nd Ave.
Yeah.
I remember like the purple
the
paint.
green-
You know how
yeah,
there's purple paint? I don't know if you remember. Like there's purple paint in the 2nd Ave station.
Yeah.
So we walk down there, and I'm like, oh my God, that's it. This is the station. It has to be. We get down. I'm like, okay, we were going uptown. Let's go on the uptown track. Blah, blah, blah. And then we go down there. By some miracle, the phone is still there
Under the track.
under the tracks.
So how'd you get it?
So I am like, let's go get someone who can get it. Because you know how they have those signs that are like, don't go into the tracks.
Yeah.
Get someone else to do it. And then my dad, before I can be like, let's go find someone, jumps into the tracks, grabs the phone, and jumps back out of the tracks.
Fuck yeah.
I mean,
My
have you
hero.
heard? I know it was Mother's Day yesterday,
But
today
it's
is my
Father's Day.
dad's day.
There we go. That was awesome. Thank you so much for coming on. Perfect.
course.
I just spit on you. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Plug everything one more time.
Okay, follow me at World Famous Julia on Instagram. You won't regret it. I post great stuff. Okay, you'll love it. You
Just
follow
Friends?
at Just Friends Comedy. We have a show, but you're
Promos
gonna
are
miss it.
hilarious.
But yeah, I know.
Wow.
I'm
All
trying
right.
to think. Yeah, tell me something I don't know. Trying to think if there's anything else I want to promo. No, just follow me. That would mean a lot to me. If you
Perfect.
could do that, that'd be great.
Well, thank you everybody so much for listening. Of course, follow me on all social media at Brennan T Comedy. Check out the website, BrennanTComedy.com. Subscribe on Patreon, patreon.com/Brennan Tassif. Get your ex-drinking buddy merch. Wah, 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 wah.
Wow, 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 wow.
And we'll talk to y'all next week.